Recipient of the Chairman's Award, Attorney Sherri Jefferson.
Our final award tonight is the Chairman's Award. This honors and recognizes the person who has performed outstanding community service for DeKalb and Fulton County residents. I'm excited to introduce to you tonight a woman who is a hero and a giant for our young people, because what she does in the community certainly contributes to the overall well-being of our children. Attorney Sherri Jefferson. She has founded the African American Juvenile Justice Project to give more of our young people hope. And what she does really works. Please see why on the screen as Ms. Jefferson comes to me.
Rebuilding families one client at a time. This is a theme Sherri Jefferson lives by and practices on a daily basis as founder and managing attorney of the Family Law Center, a Georgia firm specializing in business, domestic relations, criminal, and civil law. An advocate for a better tomorrow by helping our youth, Sherri Jefferson founded the African American Juvenile Justice Project, which focuses includes community accountability and responsibility, youth leadership, and legislative initiatives for juvenile justice and reform.
What motivated me to create the African American Juvenile Justice Project has a lot to do with my upbringing. We grew up in a community of shareholders, and when I saw a void in that, or the dismantling of that in our community, where our children were becoming victims of the school to prison pipeline, where our daughters were engaged in teenage pregnancy, and where single parenting almost appeared to be a disease of sorts. In addition to the dig mentality of how drugs, drunkenness, ignorance, illiteracy, greed, and guns plagued our community. And I felt like in order to fulfill the void that we needed to start a program that was about accountability, responsibility, youth leadership, and juvenile justice and reform. The FDHA has assisted me in achieving my goals based on their longevity and their commitment to the needs and the concerns of the communities of Fulton and DeKalb County. But they're not limited to those needs because they offer and provide services in the field of healthcare that enables people from all walks of life in case of an emergency to utilize their services. I would like to thank the Fulton DeKalb Hospital Authority for this opportunity to be a recipient of the prestigious Chairman Award. How do you say thank you? Words could not express my thanks. So the best way to give thanks and to be a form or show a form of my appreciation would be the continued effort of the mission of the African American Juvenile Justice Project.
Recipient of the Chairman's Award, Attorney Sherri Jefferson.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Jefferson and Mr. George.
I had the opportunity to meet Ms. Jefferson in the spring, serving on the board for the Community Service Awards for WXIA, and following her ever since. And anybody that understands the statistics here in this city, we're among the top cities in the nation that incarcerates young black males in this city that we call the Mecca. And when you look at the challenges and the disproportionality of how these young people are incarcerated, and the young ladies and the challenges, this lady has done a phenomenal job. She could go about her business making all the money in the world, but she's dedicated her time and commitment. And so when we look at what she's doing with the Juvenile Justice Project and the things that are there, the Fulton DeKalb Hospital Authority, our board unanimously said you are the one. So we thank you for what you're doing for our young people, more importantly, to help us understand what we have to do.
Greetings, and it is indeed an honor to be a recipient of this prestigious award. And I have equally followed your chairman, Mr. Deutsch, from his days at Fort Valley to working for Senator Sam Nunn to 100 Black Men and the various entrepreneurial programs and services that he's been able to provide to not just the city of Atlanta, Fulton, and DeKalb counties, but equally to the benefit of all human beings, notwithstanding one's race, ethnicity, or gender throughout the country. And it is with that privilege that I accept this award, because I feel like I'm having the honor to not walk in, but at least be able to tippy-toe around such great shoes. With that being said, having the opportunity to stand before you, I can't leave this stage without sort of reiterating some of the things that he said, but more importantly, just taking the opportunity to give us an opportunity to focus on the realities that surround us. Over the last couple of weeks, many of us have been inundated with news media coverage as it pertains to the death and the murder of Michael Brown, as well as Eric Gardner in New York. And whether one perceives those incidents to be race-related or not, at the end of the day, I always remind our young African-American males particularly about accountability and responsibility and the things that we have to do in our own communities to avoid police-citizens encounters. And while it is indeed important that we teach our youth how to interact with the police, my ultimate goal is that they never have to. And so we have a program, thank you. Through the African American Juvenile Justice Project, we have a program called 6 Ps. And part of the 6 Ps is, again, the premise of accountability and responsibility. The first P is, what are our parents doing? Single parenting is not a disease. You don't wake up pregnant. And so through Fulton and DeKalb services, we're able to educate and inform young ladies about the responsibilities that they have concerning premarital sex. And whether one's decision is there are certain alternatives to whether they should or should not keep a child, that's not my place. My place is to basically stop it before it starts. And through Fulton and DeKalb, they offer numerous services through Grady Hospital that educates and informs so that single parenting doesn't become the ultimate excuse for so many young women who ultimately raise children who ultimately become part of the system. The next is the role of the principals. What are our principals in our school systems doing to either initiate and or dismantle the school-to-prison pipeline? What is the church doing? What are the pastors doing? There was a generation where the pastors were an intricate part of the community and engaged in community outreach. And we can't dismiss the role of the pastors today. Right now on our Old National Highway in Fulton County, you have juvenile prostitution and drug addictions up and down, but they're surrounded by mega churches. And faith without works is dead. Sure, the fervent prayers of the righteous availeth much, but if you're not out there in the fields doing anything, your prayers fall on deaf ears. And so we have to be accountable and responsible for what we need to be doing with our youth. The next interaction is the P that we call police. So when they go from the parent to the pastor to the principal, at some point, unfortunately, many of our youth will have a police encounter. I don't submit that every police officer in America wakes up with the intent to kill a black male. I don't believe that at all. I am the daughter, the proud daughter of one of New York's finest. And I understand what it is like for an officer to get up in the morning with the dignity and the integrity of fulfilling his and her duties. And with that being said, we were taught how to interact with police. And we were taught, you don't. When you see the police, you respect them as an authoritative figure. But notwithstanding that, if you don't put yourself in harm's way, the likelihood of you having a police-citizen encounter will be slim to none other than seeing them in a coffee shop. And so with that being said, we still hold the police to a standard. That doesn't dismiss the fact that some of our officers have been ill-trained. Some have no interactions with inner-city communities. And there's a thing called preference or prejudice. And we need to be able to differentiate the difference before we accuse every officer of being prejudiced. So as we go to the next phase, we then have prosecutors. How do we here in Fulton and DeKalb County encourage our prosecutors to provide divergent programs? Because truth be told, the majority of young African American males and females that are incarcerated in the state of Georgia are in Fulton and DeKalb. And if race were the issue, just look to who your prosecutors are. With that being said, we then call upon our prison systems to be accountable and responsible so that they are rehabilitating individuals that are returned into our communities. As it pertains to the Fulton DeKalb Hospital Authority, our 6P system includes the first 3, parents, pastors, but then we go on to the role of a physician, a pharmacist, a psychologist, and then we also include the role of the politician. Those 6 Ps work collaboratively in an effort to fulfill the program on tomorrow, which is the Mind Matters Summit. And we expect that we're not simply taking our students and taking them from schoolhouse to the jailhouse to the courthouse to be warehouse. We expect that we're not merely going to be telling our youth that they all have mental defects and disorders, that they all have deficiencies, because it has indeed become the new welfare system, where there are more children in Social Security offices collecting checks than the senior citizens who've worked diligently their entire lives. And we all have to be accountable and responsible for what is happening to the future, not just of Black Atlanta, but of America overall, because each one of us ought to be accountable and responsible for the future of America. I thank you for this opportunity and this prestigious award. God bless and good night.